Hello there everyone, and this is Rackets96 here with the Nerf and Strike Elite Rayven. And we're going to be cracking it open today, because there's a little bit of a noise here. There it is. Haven't heard that before. It has gotten a lot of use lately. So I'm just going to get it open here and see if maybe one of the flywheels is rubbing. It hasn't taken any drops lately. Not that I remember doing to it anyway. I don't remember dropping it really bad, enough to damage one of the motors. I mean, they are honey badgers, and they are only running on normal 4 alkaline batteries. I actually believe they're running on Duracells. So that's no way of hurting the motors themselves. But I am very cautious when it comes to blasters like this. I mean, yes, it would be nice and easy to order another motor, because I will be placing an order for motors in the future. But that is not the point after all, because I want to salvage whatever is going on here, whether it's just a soldering lead went bad, so I got my soldering iron ready to go. Already got that screw out. So many screws in a Rayven. I don't understand it. Let's see here. We got 4 technically in the handle grip trigger area. You really would only need 2 if they would have done it like they did on the Rapid Strike. Oh, there we go. See, my white lithium grease job is a problem here as well. There we go. Let me get all the screws. There's one. Alright, that's in there. Oh yeah, my white lithium grease job could be better. Has been sitting for a while. Only gets used every now and then. That's not too big of a surprise. And we're rocking about 1 p.m. on Friday, so gotta have some coffee. Set that back there. Get this jam door out of the way. The peg can stay there, and let's see. Okay, so I thought there was a problem with this, and I'll show you. I'm just going to clean up my white lithium grease here. I thought there was a severe problem with this blaster. I mean, I'm going to do a whole re-greasing job in here, but just to show you the internals. Now, the solders are not perfect, because this wasn't too long ago, but it was long enough before I knew how to solder correctly, and not by correctly, I don't mean... my solder jobs aren't perfect, and I might even in this video show you how I solder, but my soldering on this is not pristine, but that's actually not the problem. That's why there's been a rattle in here, minus the screw. Well, there's the screw. There's a piece of wire just stuck in here for when I was doing my trimming job. There we are. That's my rattle. Tiny little piece of a wire. That goes in the garbage. That could have been some of the problem. Actually looks like I was pinching a wire there, so. That's the trigger. Rev trigger doesn't have anything on it. Well, this is actually a really good moment here. Everything else can stay in. In fact, let me get the trigger here. And the rev trigger. So how I do my cherry switches is unlike a lot of people. If I have a problem with a cherry switch, permanently epoxying it down is a wonderful option if you don't want it to go anywhere. But when I do these kind of jobs, I'm making it for myself, not like it's being shipped out and delivered. So I want something that I can easily maintenance in a hurry. And this is kind of where this comes in. Again, the wiring is not perfect, and it's all red. You can see we have our cherry switch down here, and it's actually held in with hot glue. So that's not the problem at all. So I do that with hot glue, and you can see it's seated right behind the trigger. I'm going to try and hold the trigger in and do this. You can see I still kept the little, get the trigger out of the way. You can see I still kept the little lock here, but it's got a custom plastic plate over it. Pretty thin plastic, but enough to hold it in so it doesn't fly out. so I didn't have to add a trigger return spring. So I can easily just... So that's nice and simple. It's an easier way for me than lining it up and relying on purely the arm on the switch to do it all, because the actual switch is, I'd say 3 centimeters away from the roller on the micro switch is where the rev trigger is. So I wanted something to kind of hold it back, and I didn't want to have to carve out too much of the original shell. In fact, I didn't carve anything off the normal shell, so I could totally rewire this, put stock motors back in, which would never want to do with the way this was done. But nice, clean, simple, and easy. That's the problem. Just as I thought. Okay. That's what I was afraid of. So my noise here, so we know, it's this noise right here. Let me just get that out of the way. It just doesn't sound right. If anyone knows what honey badgers sound like running in a Rayven, then you'll know. It's kind of annoying, and what it is this is the screw out of the flywheel cage. One of the ones that hold it in. It should all be shiny, but there's parts that aren't. So my guess here is from constant use, this screw has just wiggled its way out. Get the other one out here. And now, in taking these out, technically I'm separating the flywheel cage. I would now be able to pull, or to separate it. So as we can see here, this one, my finger wasn't in the way. I think this is a magnetic tip. Yeah. So this one is completely shiny. It's nothing but glare. On this one, you can see there is some buildup on there. So this screw is unfortunately stripped in the screw port, which means I'm either going to have to live with that vibration, which I don't like, because in the Nerf N-Strike Elite Rayven, there is no screws holding down the flywheel cage. They use friction. So there's three posts. I can't even point. There's one here, one up here, and one over here. And that's what the flywheel cage sits in at. I could totally remove it if I so chose. I actually don't see any reason to, because there's not that much dart buildup going on in here. Plus, from running it, I have really good buildup on the flywheels, and I like that. I like a lot of friction on my darts. Well, that's concerning. My flywheels aren't straight. I see a solution. There we go. They're straight now. That's the one thing with most aftermarket motors. The terminals are on the top. At least the honey badgers and anything else from Make Test Battle. The terminals are on the top, so you can't put that rubber piece back over to kind of hold the motor in. And they're really tight, so you really have to friction fit them in. And you don't want to carve out the inside of the flywheel cage to squish the motor in, because then it won't be tight enough and it will just gravitate back out. Learned that one the hard way. But thankfully, I had another flywheel cage from a... for the Strife when I was building the Straven. So I had an extra flywheel cage from that to do all of that with. Let me get this screw out for the linkage here. Even my screws are covered in white lithium grease. Like, it's ridiculous. There's actually a piece of, or not a piece, but remains from darts. Dart buildup all over the inside of this shell, because how the flywheel cage works is it's vented. So you can actually see the flywheel right there. And if I spin it, you can literally see the flywheel. So there's dart buildup up in the tack rail. Not too bad. It's where I'd have to get canned air and spray it out. It's not that bad. Whew. Left my coffee sitting too long, starting to separate. But that's good enough. Hobby knife. I love maintaining my blasters. I don't know what it is, but when you go into something you've already completed, you're not sitting here trying to figure out how it's going to go together, how it's going to work. You already know. You've already built it. So in this case, it just comes down to maintenance. You know, what can you do to make it perform a little bit better over time? Grease everything. You know, you don't want plastic on plastic contact. There's no screw there. And actually, okay, I didn't glue this down like I normally would have, which is good. And I definitely OD'd on the grease here, so I might cut some of this out because this is mainly going to be me. I might even time lapse it. This is going to be me cleaning a bunch of these parts out, and then I'm gonna load up a 12, and it's 6 that goes on the side, and I'll do a firing demo when I'm done. I'm starting to experiment with new video formats. I want to get more views. Subscriptions don't really matter. You know, if you're not liking what you're seeing, don't subscribe. Not gonna force anybody. And those of you that actually use Ravens, do you guys prefer on the trigger mech how it goes behind the flywheels and ends all the way back here? When you pull the trigger, I have an extension spring back here. You can see it. Do you guys prefer that, or do you prefer the way the Rayven originally feels with the spring to pull it back instead of a spring in the back here, which is actually hot glued in? Lost the rev trigger. Instead of the spring pulling back, do you prefer the spring that used to sit in here? I like this crisp trigger pull better. Makes it seem like you're actually doing something. But it could totally just be me. That's just how I like it. I know a lot of people prefer the extension spring better than the... I'm calling them extension springs and return springs. I could totally be phrasing that wrong. Of course, now I'm all twisted up here. There we go. Fit back in track. Thank you. Of course, with the extension spring, it was a pain to get in. It's a spring about this long. And what I did is I just rolled it over into the groove and hot glued it while holding it with actually a flat tip to keep it down. So it wasn't too bad to get in. Of course, that was after melting a hole in the pusher mechanism to have it sit. That was a pain. That took way too long to figure out. Not really figure out because it was done before, so it's not like you had to engineer anything. I don't remember who the first person who did that was. Swapping the springs out. The first time I did it was in my original Rayven, which I need to open that up. I might do another segment. Or another video like this in the future. Maybe right after this one and see how I like how this one goes. Then maybe post the other one. But it's got stock motors. And I want to put my truss fires in it. Because it just doesn't seem right. Something in it doesn't seem right. I mean, it seems super slow. I remember firing this guy brand new. I actually got it in the box. It was already... you know, like out of the packaging and everything, but it was in box. I still have the original box. But it wasn't new, per se. But, I mean, clearly one being elite and one being pre-elite, there's going to be a difference there. I don't like that sound. Alright, so if you guys could hear in the, right before I cut, I was only having one flywheel revving, which wasn't the problem I was dealing with in the first place, but my fix to that problem was moving around the flywheel, getting it to, well, I put it up too high, which was causing way too much friction, which wasn't letting the motor move. So with that fixed, time to test, make sure they're both cooperating now. And see, that's my other problem, is I did this The way I did this wiring, I did it so tight and so clean. Now things they just get in the way now. So actually, let me get rid of my, I might be able to salvage that. Tuck that back out of the way. I'm gonna melt a brief hole in there. See, once you come back through and troubleshoot these things, it's not that much of a problem. Like, that's the sound I was having originally. Sounds like a motor is going. I'm not positive there, but I'm going to have to crack this flywheel cage. Because I'm not 100% on if that's that noise or not. It could be a flywheel rubbing. I won't know until I get this bottom of the cage separated enough to come off. I mean, it could be a pinched wire as well. I might have to rewire the thing, in which case it sounds weird, but I'd actually be pretty happy about that. Because that would then give me a chance to fix my so many mistakes in this thing. But resoldering these terminals on the motors is not going to be fun at all. And the sound stops. This is super confusing, but I think what's happening is, if you guys can see, and you totally can, where it looks like there's a little bit of white inside there, that's not grease. That's actually shavings from the inside of this thing. When I put on flywheels, and I don't know if everyone does this, but I set them on just like this, and I tend to push as far in as they'll go. Well, what happens is you can hear that. It literally smells like burning ABS plastic, and that's what it is. So let me do the same to the other one, so they're gapped right. Alright, that should solve the problem. And the only way you really notice that, in all honesty, the only way I notice it is, last time I actually used this blaster, I wasn't using it in anything like a war or anything like that. I just took it up, shot 2 6s through it, which is what it has in it all the time, just for storage. And I was using it, and it just didn't sound right. Something in it, oh, excuse me, didn't sound quite right. It sounded like I was running on a motor and a half. Like, you know when you're running on one motor, because usually you can see now I just did it again. Usually you can see in through the flywheel, through the jam door, and see if the flywheels are moving. Well, on this you totally can. And even from my first glance, it didn't seem like anything was wrong. But that makes a lot of sense, because it sounded like something was grinding. And now it's pretty clear something was. Meanwhile, it sounds like someone's having a wonderful police chase outside. There we go. Put these in. And I'm hoping I can edit this video down to at least 20 minutes, because my other segment was 22. And it was most me cleaning parts. Like, this is going to be mostly reassembling now. That's my girl. Woo-hoo-hoo. She is back. All right. Trigger. Help if I put it in straight. With just enough white lithium grease. Yeah. All right. I actually need to unplug ye old soldering iron, which is still hot, so we got to let that sit out a bit. And I'm actually going to need to heat up a hot glue gun so I can stick my wires back down. But in the meantime, alright, so we're back on in here. We're just putting the remainder of the internal screws in. Here's the trigger screw. Forgot to put that in. That's a no-no. Always need that. Got the other flywheel screw in. Now that one goes into that port. And that screw goes into that port. But nothing goes up into this third one. So putting a screw in it is kind of pointless. Unless we get a wide enough one. Too wide. Please tell me that went on the tabletop. Okay, it did. But something like this. Oh, yeah. Of course, this is not a screw port at all. And I hope the shell still closes after this. But that should at least... Now the flywheel cage won't move as much, which is a plus. This moving flywheel cages, I don't freaking think so. I'll do anything I can to stop a flywheel cage from rattling around in a shell, which is what's happening. And that's just by design on these, because in the Strife... Actually, I don't know. Don't blasters have most of their flywheel cages screwed? Yeah, screwed down. Because in the Strife, you have those long force screws that come out from each corner. The Rayven's just, as far as I know anyway, except for the two outside screws. These two. The port here and the port here. Those are the only two holding it in, and that's not very efficient, if you ask me. I'd much rather prefer a Strife's flywheel cage system, just the system holding it down, inside a Rayven, and it would be way too hard to figure out. Even with aftermarket cages, there's no way to do that. Even with the only addition that might be done to this, I feel like I'm talking too much, not doing enough here. But who knows? Maybe that will work. It's always this peg in the back here. There we go. That's aligned. What else am I waiting on? Nothing. There we go. Yup. Just like I thought. That screw is going to be a problem. Alright, so here we are. The Rayven put back together. Going at our little dart catch over here. Running like the day she was new, actually. I'm really feeling confident about that. So we're gonna get to it. See if we can do something like I'm feeling pretty confident. She's back at 125%. And of course, always gotta have eye protection. I usually don't put them on when I'm dealing with unmodified blasters. I mean, especially if I'm the only one down here, but I feel like with modified stuff, you have to always be careful. No matter whether it's just you, or like if you're shooting at a wall. That's why I put them on the first time, because you don't know what's going to happen if something bounces off this concrete and comes back. I'd rather have both of my eyes. And, I mean, maybe that's just a preference, but I really like having both. So, Rayven going back up on the shelf up there. With all of the goods, the Oblivion rifle, or my the black long shot, won't be there for too long. I am working on some stuff. And as in stuff, it's actually right there. But thank you guys for watching. Time to sit down and edit this thing. Peace out, bros.